Hey there. I know why you're here. You're looking for a story that will help you drift off into a peaceful sleep. Something calming, a little mysterious. Something that carries your mind away. Well, you've come to the right place. Before we begin tonight's journey, do me a little favor. Tap the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Even just a good night. It really helps more sleepy souls like you find their way here. Now, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let's begin tonight's story. It started with a sound, soft, deliberate knocks echoing through the quiet of his apartment. At first, he thought it was the neighbors, the pipes, anything but what it really was. But then his television flickered. The screen cut to static and showed his own front door, a door he hadn't opened, a door that was slowly creaking ajar on its own. And then he saw it, a shadow stepping across the threshold, too tall, too still, as if it had been waiting there all along. Every night since, the knocks have grown louder, closer, until they aren't coming from the TV anymore. They're inside the walls, inside the room, and now they're coming for you. There is a certain weight to silence at this hour, the kind that feels unnatural in a space so familiar. The apartment is still. The only sound, the faint electric hum from the television as late-night reruns play with indifferent cheer. He tells himself it's just background noise, a distraction to keep him company in the hours where sleep never comes easy anymore. The clock ticks past midnight. Shadows from the streetlights dance across the walls as his tired eyes stay fixed on the glowing screen, though he's not really watching. His body is heavy with exhaustion, yet his mind refuses to quiet. Then it happens. 3 soft, deliberate knocks echo through the stillness, each one perfectly spaced, like a slow heartbeat against the door. His breath catches. He freezes, unsure if he imagined it. The sound came from somewhere near, too near. His rational mind fumbles for answers. Old pipes, the neighbors upstairs, maybe even the wind. But deep down, something colder and more primal insists it was neither accident nor coincidence. A beat of silence passes before the knocks come again, slightly louder this time, each one ringing with unnatural clarity that seems to cut through the walls themselves. His gaze shifts slowly toward the front door across the room. Nothing moves. The brass handle stays still. He exhales slowly, willing himself to dismiss it. But then the TV screen flickers, the sitcom laughter abruptly stuttering, replaced by a sudden burst of black and white static and a high-pitched whine before snapping back. The flicker seems insignificant at first, easy enough to blame on poor reception or some error in the broadcast. But it happens again, this time longer. The static consumes the entire screen for several heartbeats, and the hum from the television deepens to a low, vibrating growl that rattles faintly in his chest. His fingers tighten on the remote, thumb hovering over the power button, but something stops him, something that feels like a warning whisper in his mind, telling him to wait, to watch. As the screen stabilizes, his stomach lurches. The rerun is gone. In its place is a live image of his front door. The angle is low, as though a camera is hidden somewhere in the hallway, perfectly centered on the door frame, showing the familiar scuffed wood and brass lock. No title card, no voiceover, just a live feed of his own entrance. His mouth is dry, his breath shallow as he struggles to understand. A prank, maybe, a late-night reality show, but no answers come. Only the gnawing dread that begins to coil tightly in his gut. Then, softly, impossibly, 3 more knocks, this time emerging from the television speakers with such resonance that it feels like the sound exists, both in the room and on the screen simultaneously. The door on screen shudders slightly with the force of the knock. He watches in stunned paralysis as the latch begins to turn ever so slowly, each metallic click amplified until it's deafening in the quiet apartment. The door creaks open an inch, just enough for a sliver of the hallway's light to cut into the darkness. He doesn't move, he doesn't breathe, and then, impossibly, something shifts in the shadows. A figure, tall, unnaturally thin, its head brushing the top of the frame, steps forward with agonizing slowness. The dim hallway light fails to reveal its face. Instead, the shape stands there, silent and still, as though aware of his gaze and perfectly content to remain unreadable. His chest tightens. The air feels heavier now, charged with an oppressive cold that bites deep into his bones. His hand twitches toward his phone, but before he can reach it, the figure tilts its head slightly, in a movement too smooth, too deliberate, as though it senses his intent. A low hum begins to bleed from the speakers, resonating deep in his skull like a vibration too low to properly hear. His body locks, panic rises in his throat, thick and suffocating, threatening to choke him. The figure remains unmoving on screen, yet he feels the weight of its presence pressing through the glass, filling every corner of the room with its unseen mass. Slowly, its long arms begin to shift at its sides, fingers uncurling like dry leaves snapping free from their branches. His thumb presses down hard on the remote's power button, desperate for escape, but nothing happens. The screen doesn't even blink. Static dances briefly at the edges of the feed, before the image sharpens again, closer now. Somehow, impossibly, the camera's perspective has shifted a few feet forward without any visible movement, as though something is pulling it toward the door. The figure's shape looms larger, and though no details are visible, his mind fills in the blanks with grotesque imaginings, hollow eyes, a mouth stretched impossibly wide, skin pulled too tight over a skeletal frame. He swallows hard, his throat dry as sandpaper, but the sound is deafening in the silence, and then, abruptly, the television snaps to black. For one long, agonizing moment, there is only darkness. He sits rigid, paralyzed in his seat, staring at his own faint reflection in the now dead screen. A subtle shift in the shadows behind him makes his heart stutter violently against his ribs. His mind screams to turn, to look, but his body refuses, held fast by the primal terror that whispers of something waiting there. And then it comes again, 3 knocks. But this time, the sound doesn't echo from the television, nor from the door across the room. It comes from inside the apartment, impossibly close, as though knuckles are rapping gently on the wall just inches from his head. His breath quickens, ragged and loud in the stifling silence. The sound is softer than before, yet far more horrifying in its intimacy, as though whatever made it has finally crossed the threshold. He can feel it now, a faint exhalation of cold air brushing the nape of his neck. The air smells wrong, earthy, wet, and metallic, like soil turned after a heavy rain. His vision swims, dark spots creeping in at the edges as the pounding of his pulse becomes a roar in his ears. The television flares to life without warning, its glow casting a pale light over the room. The feed is no longer showing the front door. The camera's angle has changed again, impossibly so. It's inside the apartment, now, positioned from a corner near the ceiling, looking directly at him. His own wide-eyed face stares back from the screen, pale and terrified. Behind him in the feed, the figure looms closer than ever, its tall shape blotting out the faint light.
He watches in helpless horror as it raises a single, impossibly long finger to where its mouth should be. The gesture is deliberate. Silence.
There is no air in his lungs anymore, only the hollow ache of trying not to breathe. He stares at the television, its sickly glow illuminating his own reflection, caught in a grainy live feed. His mouth opens slightly as if to whisper, but no sound comes out. On screen, his pale face glistens with sweat, eyes wide, pupils blown so large they look black. And behind him in the feed, that figure looms, a monstrous silhouette standing no more than a foot away, its featureless face tilted at an impossible angle, as though examining him with curiosity. The long finger remains pressed against where lips might have been, the universal gesture for silence, and in that gesture lies a threat, so primal his entire body vibrates with terror. The hum from the television grows louder now, deep enough to rattle his ribcage, and somewhere beneath it, he thinks he hears words, a garbled whisper threaded through static. Stay still. The voice is neither male nor female, but a hollow resonance, layered and inhuman, like wind funneling through a cracked window. His hands grip the couch cushion so tightly that his knuckles ache. He fights the urge to turn around, every fiber of his being screaming in conflict. The desperate need to look, to confirm, clashing violently with the primal instinct not to draw its attention. His eyes water from the strain of staring unblinking at the screen. Then, without warning, the figure in the feed tilts its head further, impossibly far now, until a wet cracking sound cuts through the room. The sound is sickening, like dry branches snapping underfoot, but wetter, more intimate, as if bones and tendons are being tested past their limits. He clenches his jaw, a strangled whimper escaping his throat before he can stop it. In the live feed, the figure's head jerks violently toward the camera, and for the first time, there's movement in the room behind him. A shifting shadow spills across the floor, like liquid darkness. It pools around his feet, unseen in the periphery, but all too visible on screen. The whispered voice grows louder, layered voices weaving together like a discordant chorus. Do not move, do not look, do not breathe. His lungs burn painfully from the effort of holding still, but he obeys. A cold draft brushes across his exposed neck, and the smell that follows makes bile rise in his throat. Damp soil, iron, and something faintly sweet, like rotting fruit. He fights the trembling in his legs, terrified the slightest motion will invite whatever is behind him to act. His phone lies forgotten on the couch beside him, the screen cracked from his earlier grip. Its faint reflection shows nothing, yet his instincts scream that something massive towers there, waiting, calculating. The live feed glitches suddenly. The image wavers, lines tearing through his reflection, and then stabilizes with the figure, now crouched directly over his shoulder. It's close enough now that he can almost feel it leaning in. Its form on screen pulses faintly like it exists, just out of sync with reality, each flicker revealing glimpses of grotesque anatomy, limbs too long, joints bending the wrong way, and a torso so gaunt that ribs strain visibly beneath stretched, grayish skin. A faint sound escapes it, not quite a breath, not quite a growl, but something in between, a sound of something trying to remember how lungs should work. Words stutter across the bottom of the screen, each letter glitching violently, as though resisting being formed. The phrase flashes again, behind you, behind you. He bites down so hard on his lower lip, he tastes copper. The urge to run is overwhelming now, but his body is still chained by fear. His eyes dart to the door,
still closed, still locked. His mind screams logic, insists it's impossible, but the overwhelming sensation of being watched buries every rational thought. The whispers grow louder still, a chorus building to a fever pitch. Behind you, behind you, behind you. Then silence. All at once, the voices cease. The television flickers and goes dark, the oppressive hum vanishing with it. His ears ring in the sudden absence of sound, his heartbeat thunderous in the quiet. He sits motionless, still too afraid to turn, the terror cementing his body in place. A single sound breaks the silence, a faint creak of floorboards directly behind him. It's slow, deliberate, as if whatever was there has shifted its weight slightly. His throat tightens painfully. The stench lingers, stronger now, like something ancient and decayed has crawled out from the earth itself. His eyes blur with tears. He tries to will himself to move, to stand, to scream, anything, but his limbs refuse, heavy as lead. Another creak, closer this time. He swears he can feel its presence now, not just as an idea but as something physical in the room. The air grows colder with each passing second, a sharp, biting chill sinking into his bones. Somewhere deep in his mind, he knows that whatever is behind him is no longer content to wait. Then the knocks return, 3 sharp raps against the wall directly to his left. Not the door, not the TV, the wall itself. His head jerks instinctively toward the sound, but he catches himself halfway, clamping his eyes shut. His breathing is rapid now, chest heaving as silent tears streak down his face. Another set of knocks, this time on his right. They're moving. Whatever it is, it's circling him. The sound is impossibly loud in the stillness, each knock resonating like a drumbeat inside his skull. The knocks continue, alternating sides, faster now, surrounding him in a pattern that makes no sense, like some ritual or signal he doesn't understand. The sound grows frenzied, chaotic, echoing in his mind until he thinks his skull might split from the pressure. He wants to cover his ears, to block out the sound, but some instinct warns him not to move, not to give it reason to act. And then, abruptly, all is quiet again. His breath comes in shallow gasps, and in that silence, a new sound emerges, a faint scraping like nails dragging along wood. It starts behind him, directly at his back, and travels slowly up the wall. His stomach twists into a knot of pure dread as the scraping continues up to the ceiling. The sound lingers there just above his head, moving lazily across the plaster as dust flakes drift down. He can almost picture it crawling, its long limbs bending and twisting unnaturally as it maneuvers above him. His body trembles violently now. The scraping stops. For a moment he thinks it might be over. Then he hears it, a whisper, low, wet, right against his ear. Do not turn around.
His entire body is a battlefield of tension, muscles locked so tightly, it feels as though his bones might snap beneath the strain. The whisper still lingers in his ear, a sound so faint and wet, it feels less like air and more like the brushing of something alive, lips without warmth, words without breath. Do not turn around. The phrase repeats inside his skull as if something planted it there, a command wrapped around his neurons like cold fingers. The silence that follows is even worse than the sound had been, thick and pulsating with the certainty that whatever is behind him has not moved. Or perhaps it has, imperceptibly, inching closer in ways his mind refuses to process. He swallows hard, throat so dry, it feels like sandpaper scraping against itself. The television remains dark now, the faint reflection of the room on its surface barely visible, distorted by the trembling in his vision. His phone lies in his lap, face down and lifeless, as though drained of power by the same presence now dominating the room. He wants to scream, but the fear has metastasized into something larger than panic, something ancient and suffocating, leaving him unable to summon even a whimper. His chest burns from shallow breathing as he counts seconds in his head, a futile attempt at control, though each tick feels stretched into eternity. Then, as though to punish the attempt at composure, the sound returns, not a knock, not a whisper, but breathing, shallow, rattling breaths, unnaturally loud in the stillness, no longer content to stay behind him. The sound is everywhere now, reverberating from the walls, the floor, even the air itself, pressing in so closely it feels as though he's inhaling whatever it exhales. There's no mistaking the wetness in the sound, like lungs filled with fluid, or the hiss of something pulling water up through a straw. The breathing deepens, becoming almost rhythmic, syncing with his own heartbeat in a way that makes his skin crawl. He squeezes his eyes shut tighter, clenching his fists until his nails bite into his palms. Another creak of floorboards sends a lightning bolt of terror down his spine, not behind him this time, but to his right. He can hear it now, faint dragging sounds like fingertips, tracing patterns across the walls. The invisible weight in the room grows denser, thicker, as though the air itself is turning solid, trapping him in place, like an insect in resin. Then the voice comes again, louder now, right at the edge of audibility, slipping into his thoughts like a hot knife through wax. "You can feel me, don't move." He bites back a sob, his teeth grinding painfully as tears slip from the corners of his eyes. The stench intensifies, earthy, damp, metallic, as though the apartment itself has been buried 6 feet underground. Every instinct screams to break free, to run, to claw his way out of this invisible prison, but his body is no longer his own. The voice has wound its way deeper, threading through the synapses in his brain until he cannot distinguish it from his own thoughts. "You know me, you've always known me." The words don't feel like sound but sensation, a vibration in his bones. A shudder ripples through the couch beneath him, as though something has settled on the cushions. He doesn't dare breathe. The weight of it presses into his shoulder now, subtle but undeniable, and the unmistakable sound of long, brittle fingers unfurling fills the room. The scraping of nails drags across fabric, deliberate and slow, leaving invisible scars in the air. He imagines them brushing his skin, testing, tasting. Another whisper worms its way past his ears. Almost, the word is drawn out, lingering like a predator savoring the moment before the pounce. And then, mercifully, the television flares back to life. The burst of light is so sudden, it rips a strangled cry from his throat, his body jerking violently as his eyes fly open. The screen no longer shows the door. The angle is different again. This time, the feed is inside his bedroom, the camera placed high in a corner, staring down at his bed. The room is dark but faintly visible in the glow of the streetlights outside the window. At first, there is nothing unusual, just the familiar silhouette of his bed, his nightstand, the cracked closet door. Then movement, a slow, deliberate shift of shadows in the closet's darkness. His stomach twists violently. A hand emerges first, thin and almost skeletal, fingers bending in ways fingers should not. It grips the edge of the door and pulls it open further. His breath stutters as the figure steps out. Even through the grainy feed, its wrongness is undeniable, its movements slow and disjointed like a marionette, manipulated by unseen strings. It doesn't look at the camera.
It doesn't have to. The sense that it knows he's watching radiates from it like heat. The words return, scrolling jaggedly across the bottom of the screen. Come to me. The phrase repeats, glitching, as though the letters themselves resist being formed. Come to me. Come to me. His hands are slick with sweat now, fingers trembling violently as he presses them against his thighs to still them. He tells himself not to look away from the screen, that it's safer to keep his focus there. But then the air shifts again. A faint vibration runs up his spine as the couch cushions depress further under unseen weight. The smell of rot and damp earth is suffocating now, clogging his throat, making each swallow a battle. On screen, the figure moves toward the camera with unnatural smoothness, its head turning slightly as though straining to hear something faint. The words stutter again, changing this time. Behind you. He chokes on a cry. Behind you. Behind you. Each repetition grows more violent, more insistent, until the letters themselves seem to splinter and bleed across the screen. And then, in the real world, 3 soft knocks against the back of his skull. The sensation is light, almost playful, but its intimacy is worse than any previous sound. He lurches forward reflexively, his hands gripping the edge of the couch, as though it might anchor him to reality. But the presence behind him doesn't flinch. If anything, it seems to lean in closer, its unseen form radiating a cold so profound, his skin prickles with goose flesh. The whisper comes again, impossibly close, each syllable slithering into his mind like an oil slick. Closer now, so close. His chest heaves with panicked sobs, his knuckles white as he claws at the fabric of the couch. The television glitches violently, the figure on screen now, standing directly in front of the camera, face, or what passes for one, pressed to the lens. Its featureless visage is a swirling void, consuming all light. The words appear one final time. Turn around.
His chest feels as though it's imploding under the weight of fear. His breaths shallow and quick, each one a desperate attempt to quiet the rising scream, threatening to tear its way out of him. The words "turn around" continue flashing across the television screen in erratic bursts, the letters bending, breaking, reforming like they're alive, like they're screaming too. The figure's featureless face is pressed so close to the lens now that its darkness fills nearly the entire frame, its edges undulating faintly as though it's breathing or pulsing or waiting. He can feel it behind him, the thing, its presence so consuming, it's impossible to tell where the air ends and its form begins. Every cell in his body vibrates with the command not to move, but his muscles twitch involuntarily from the effort of holding still. The scent of earth and decay is choking now, thick as smoke in his nostrils. A single drop of sweat traces down his temple warm in the icy air, and he prays it doesn't fall loudly enough to draw attention. The whisper slithers in again, softer this time, almost coaxing. Just turn. Just see me. The voice isn't sound anymore. It's thought. It's inside. The couch creaks under shifting weight. Something is crawling closer. He can feel it on his back, bony knees pressing against the cushions, sharp fingers digging gently into the fabric, just inches from his neck. It's leaning in, its invisible face so near he can hear faint wet sounds, as though its mouth, or something worse, is opening and closing repeatedly, tasting the air. The whisper grows stronger. You're mine already. You know that, don't you? You let me in. His eyes squeeze shut harder, the darkness behind his eyelids pulsing red with panic. He wants to scream, but the sound won't come. It's as though his voice has been stolen, along with his will to move. The fingers on the couch twitch closer. He can almost feel the cold, splintered nails grazing the thin fabric of his shirt. He flinches despite himself, and the couch creaks louder as the thing above him stills. The air pressure shifts violently, a sudden oppressive heaviness pressing down on his skull like an unseen hand. Good, it breathes. You feel me. On the television, the words shift again, stuttering violently, as if the feed itself is breaking under strain. Now, the letters flash, disappear, return larger. Now, now, now. Each repetition pounds in his head like a drumbeat. His pulse syncs with the word, until he's no longer sure which is his heart and which is the command. Now. The couch dips further. He can hear joints cracking, bones shifting with sickening elasticity as the thing's shape looms over him. The whisper sharpens, no longer soft but guttural and demanding. See me. His eyes fly open involuntarily, pupils blown wide as they fix on the dead television. The screen glitches again and shows nothing, only a blank, grainy feed. His own reflection has vanished. The figure on screen is gone, but in the room, the presence has not. The whisper twists into a low growl, its meaning unmistakable even without words. Disobedience. His lungs seize as the icy air turns sharper, thinner, biting into his skin like knives. The thing moves suddenly, a shift of weight so violent it sends a deep vibration through the couch frame. The scraping of nails trails up the side of his neck, light at first, then harder, enough to raise gooseflesh and draw a shallow, stinging line. His mouth opens in a silent gasp. He can feel its face now, not with his skin, but with something deeper. A psychic proximity, so intense it burns into his mind. It's leaning in so close that it feels like it's trying to merge with him, to fold his shape into its own. Almost it whispers again, but the voice is no longer only in his head. It's in his bones, it's in his blood. The television erupts with static and screaming voices all at once, hundreds of them layered and overlapping, until the noise is deafening. And through it all, the words remain. Turn around. A single sound cuts through the cacophony. A knock. Not three this time. Just one. Heavy. Final. It comes from the television, or the door, or maybe from his own skull. He can't tell anymore. The whisper rises again, louder now, no longer restrained. Turn around. Turn around. Turn around. His breath comes in ragged sobs as tears blur his vision. His fingernails dig so deeply into the couch cushion he feels the fabric tear under his grip. He can't do it. He won't. He can't. But the pressure grows unbearable, like the atmosphere itself is collapsing inward. His ears ring. Blood drips faintly from his nose. The thing's presence sharpens to a razor edge. And suddenly he understands he doesn't have a choice. His head begins to turn. It's slow, agonizingly slow, as though he's fighting not only his own muscles but something far stronger pulling at his spine. Every inch feels like falling deeper into a void. The smell of rot is overwhelming now, so thick he gags as his eyes begin to dart toward the corner of his vision, where darkness gathers unnaturally. The whisper peaks in a howl that splits his thoughts apart. Yes, he says. His neck cracks audibly as it strains past the point of comfort. And then, silence. Everything stops. The air, the sound, even his own breathing. For one horrific instant his gaze lands on the thing. It smiles,
not with lips, not with teeth, but with its whole body, every twisted angle of its form vibrating with impossible joy as the blackness of its face opens wide, revealing a swirling void so deep it swallows the dim light of the apartment. Then the lights go out.
There is a ringing in his ears so sharp, it feels like a blade slicing straight through the meat of his brain. At first he thinks it's silence, but the pitch is too high, too deliberate, like a sound engineered to unravel thought. His eyes are open, or at least he thinks they are, but all he can see is blackness, not the comfortable dark of a room with the lights turned off. No, this darkness is thick, suffocating, pressing into his skin like cold, wet hands. He tries to move, to test the resistance in his limbs, but finds none. There is no couch beneath him, no air around him, no sense of up or down. Only void. Panic claws at the edges of his mind, his thoughts scattering like leaves in a storm. He tries to speak, to call out into the nothingness, but no sound comes. His throat burns with the effort. Then, faintly, a sound emerges, not from outside but from within. Knocking. 3 slow, deliberate strikes against the fragile barrier of his skull, reverberating through his mind, like a judge's gavel sealing his fate. He screams silently, his jaw aching with the force of it. But there's no echo, no air, just the knocking. And then, words. "You let me in." The voice coils tight around his brain stem, intimate and unhurried. "I'm here now." His chest constricts violently as unseen claws scrape across his ribcage, not physically, but as though something inside is trying to remember how to wear his body. The blackness fractures. A thin line of light slices across his vision, horizontal and sharp, like a door cracked open in a windowless room. It widens slowly, and with it comes a wave of nausea so strong, his stomach convulses. Shapes begin to bleed into existence. Walls, ceiling, floor, his apartment, but wrong somehow. The angles seem slightly off, the colors muted and gray, as though viewed through dirty glass. His couch sits where it always has, but its cushions sag as though something heavy still presses them down. The television is on again, displaying static punctuated by faint whispers too layered to pass. He's standing now, though he doesn't remember rising. His legs are stiff, alien, like they belong to someone else. The cold persists, biting deep into his muscles despite the faint warmth of the room. Then movement. In the television's reflection, something tall and thin glides across the space behind him. Its form is hazy, flickering in and out like a corrupted video file, but the shape is unmistakable. The figure, it's here, not behind glass, not behind screens. Here, his mouth goes dry, tongue heavy and useless. A single guttural word vibrates through his chest, spoken without air. Sit. His knees buckle instantly, his body collapsing onto the couch like a puppet whose strings have been cut. The cushions wheeze under his weight, but they aren't alone in their protest. The weight persists, heavier now, pressing against him from either side, as though something unseen has chosen to share the seat. His fingers twitch weakly on the armrest, but he doesn't dare move further. He can feel it, a presence, immense, ancient, patient. His peripheral vision refuses to focus on it fully, but the sense of looming mass is undeniable. Then, slowly, it begins to speak, not in words but in sensations. Cold spirals down his spine, pressure blooms in his temples, the faint smell of wet soil fills his nostrils, so vivid it's as though he's been buried alive. Images flash behind his eyes, a door opening in darkness, endless corridors lined with staring faces, hands reaching from walls slick with black ichor. You know me. The thought is not his own. You invited me when you watched, when you listened. His heart pounds violently as his throat tightens. He tries to deny it, to scream a refusal, but his thoughts are no longer private. You stayed. That was enough. The television's static deepens to a low, vibrating hum, and faint shapes begin to take form within it. Not random interference faces, human faces, hundreds of them, distorted and screaming silently, their mouths stretched into shapes no living jaw could make. Their eyes lock onto his, as though they see him through the glass, their expressions flickering between terror and ecstasy. The figure beside him, or within him, continues its slow invasion of his senses, its voice a constant pressure against the fragile walls of his mind. Every knock was an answer, every look, a door. The static voices rise into a chorus, their layers forming impossible words. You belong here now. His hands tremble violently in his lap as he fights to move, to run, to wake, but nothing changes. The weight on the couch shifts, as if the figure has leaned closer. He can feel it against his shoulder now, cold, heavy, wrong. The faint impression of fingers brushes his thigh. This is the first night, it whispers, though no sound reaches his ears. The first of many. A single sharp knock snaps his gaze to the door. On screen, the live feed has returned, showing his front door from within the apartment. The handle twitches faintly. Something on the other side scratches at the wood, slow and deliberate. His stomach churns violently as the lock rattles once, twice. Then the door in the feed creaks open. Nothing enters at first, only a darkness so thick it seems to bleed across the floor. Then a hand, a thin, pale hand with long, jagged nails, clutches the edge of the door frame. Another hand follows. The figure pulls itself inside, its movements jerky and unnatural like a stop-motion creature, animated by malice. It stands fully now, impossibly tall, its head nearly brushing the ceiling. On screen, it turns toward the camera, its faceless visage tilting slightly in mimicry of curiosity. His pulse thunders in his ears as he watches the feed. The figure doesn't move closer. It doesn't need to. It's already in the room. And then, for the first time, he hears it speak aloud. You are home. There is a heaviness in his chest now, a suffocating weight that makes every breath shallow and painful, as though invisible fingers are pressing down, testing his ribs for weakness. The figure's words, if they can be called words, linger in his mind, a presence so loud, it's impossible to separate thought from command. You are home. The syllables vibrate through his skull, like a drum beaten deep underwater, the soundless resonance, shaking loose memories he didn't know. He still carried birthdays in the same apartment, lonely dinners with the television as his only company, nights spent staring at the ceiling as silence settled over the walls like a second skin. All of it suddenly feels alien, wrong, as though these moments never truly belonged to him but were borrowed, stitched together to fill time until this. His hands twitch in his lap, the only movement he dares as the figure's pressure grows more intimate. He can't see it, not fully, not yet, but he feels its presence pressing closer, as though it has seeped into the very air, into the cracks between seconds. The television feed remains fixed on his front door, now ajar. From the corner of his eye, faint movement stirs in the reflection of the glass, a slow ripple of darkness like oil spreading across water. He squeezes his eyes shut, tears slipping down his cheeks, but the figure's whisper slithers in again. Don't look away. You invited this. You asked. The couch groans beneath a shifting weight. It's moving again. He can feel its proximity sharpening, an icy tendril of pressure curling across his shoulder blades, like the delicate brush of knuckles. He wants to scream, to run, but his muscles remain traitors, bound tight by some unseen force that seems to hum with quiet amusement. You watch the door, the voice says, no longer a whisper but a presence echoing against his ribs. Now watch me. Against his will, his eyes flutter open. The television's feed flickers, a static glitch, rippling across the screen, as though reality itself is struggling to keep up. The live image of his front door has changed again. The hallway outside is no longer familiar. The walls sag inward, bloated and wet, as though waterlogged for decades. Dark streaks run down the wood panels, thick and viscous, leaving trails that pulse faintly like veins. At the threshold, the figure lingers. It's clearer this time, taller than the doorframe, shoulders hunched unnaturally, limbs bending in ways bones shouldn't allow. Its faceless head tilts once, twice, then locks onto the camera, an act so purposeful it sends a fresh wave of cold terror ripping through his spine. You see now, the voice murmurs, closer, inside. The couch sags again, a groan of wood and fabric beneath immense invisible weight. His fingers dig deeper into his thighs, nails threatening to break skin as he fights the rising compulsion to turn his head and look. But he doesn't have to. The figure is already in his periphery, a tall smear of darkness that moves when he blinks, standing in a place where nothing should be. It leans closer, and for a single horrifying instant, he swears he feels the faint pressure of lips, cold, wet, alien, brush the edge of his ear. You're not alone. The words are a caress and a threat in equal measure. His teeth chatter violently as the air thickens, each breath pulling in more of that metallic, earthy stench until his stomach lurches. The live feed on the television flickers again. The figure on screen begins to crawl forward, its movement sudden and violent now, each jerking step accompanied by a sickening crack of unseen joints. Its long fingers clutch the doorframe one last time before releasing it, leaving deep gouges in the wood as it crosses the threshold fully. On screen it is entering the apartment, but here in reality, or what he prays is still reality, he can already feel it towering over him. The television's glow dims as static noise rises in pitch, a shrill, whining hum that threatens to pierce his eardrums. Shapes distort in the feed. For a moment, he thinks he sees himself sitting there, frozen and pale, a mirror image caught in grainy monochrome. But behind his doppelganger, the figure looms closer, its skeletal hand raised like a puppeteer preparing to seize its strings. His breath hitches as words crawl across the bottom of the screen, each letter dragging itself into existence like it's being pulled from deep water. Say it, the phrase repeats, flashing in erratic bursts. Say it, say it, say it, say it. He doesn't know what it is. His lips part instinctively, but his voice cracks caught between sobs. The whisper from the couch intensifies, vibrating through his teeth. Say it, and it's done. Say it, and you are mine. His mind screams at him not to speak, but the pressure in his chest is unbearable now, as though his own lungs have turned against him. Say it, the voice insists, now overlapping itself, splitting into multiple tones, male, female, child, animal, all speaking in perfect unison. Say it, say it, say it. His jaw trembles violently as the words press against his throat, forming of their own accord. The sound comes unbidden, weak but audible. The figure's shape sharpens in his peripheral vision, its darkness swirling faster, coalescing into something more solid. Let us, another syllable slips free, tears streaming unchecked down his face as he fights the compulsion with every ounce of strength left in him. The couch beneath him sags once more,
impossibly low now, as though the thing's weight is consuming the very fabric of the world. You, the third syllable, is almost a whisper, barely there, yet the static on the television shrieks violently in response. His body is shaking uncontrollably, muscles locking, heart pounding so hard it feels like it's cracking his ribs. Intre. The final word falls from his mouth like a stone into a bottomless well. Everything stops. The static cuts out. The screen goes black. The pressure lifts. For a moment there is nothing. No sound, no presence, no smell, just the faint sound of his own ragged breathing in the sudden void. He dares to hope, for a single breath, that it's over, that he's free. But then, faintly, almost imperceptibly, the television flickers back to life. The live feed shows his apartment again, but it's different. The walls are wrong, stretched, sagging, covered in handprints that smear upward, as though countless unseen things have been clawing their way toward the ceiling. In the center of the room sits a figure, not the tall, faceless horror, but something smaller, human, him. He's staring blankly at the screen, lips parted, eyes hollow, and behind him, the tall figure smiles.
The sight of himself on the screen freezes his blood, every thought reduced to static as he watches the hollow, lifeless version of his body sitting slumped on the couch. His own eyes, if they can still be called his, are empty sockets filled with grainy darkness, reflecting no light, no soul. The figure behind him towers higher than ever before, its featureless face angled downward in what could almost be mistaken for reverence or delight. Its long fingers curl around his reflection's shoulders delicately, almost lovingly, as if cradling a cherished object. The television's faint glow pulses with each second, the rhythm strangely synchronized with the pounding of his heart. Then, in a single horrifying moment, the figure's faceless head begins to split, not with sound, not with violence, but with a fluid, seamless parting, like dark clay being peeled back. The void inside reveals something far worse than darkness, a swirling mass of shapes and colors that defy logic, fragments of places he's never been, people he's never met, screaming silently as they are devoured into its endless churn. His stomach churns violently, bile rising in his throat, but even as his body threatens to rebel, he cannot look away. The whisper returns, stronger now, reverberating from within his own skull. You are seeing, you are becoming. The pressure in the room sharpens, the air itself bending around him, as though the walls are straining to hold something too vast for their meager boundaries. A new sound joins the relentless hum, the faint, rhythmic patter of nails tapping wood. At first, it's soft, almost dismissible, but it grows louder with each cycle until it resonates in his ribcage like a second heartbeat. He jerks his gaze instinctively toward the sound, but catches himself halfway, forcing his eyes back to the screen. The tapping persists, now coming from every direction, the floor, the ceiling, the walls, as if countless unseen hands are searching for a way in. His reflection on the screen jerks suddenly, the head twitching to one side in a motion too sharp to be human. The figure's hands tighten on his double's shoulders, and faint cracks begin to spread across the image. At first, tiny spider webs in the glass, but growing rapidly until the whole screen looks ready to shatter. Don't look away, the whisper commands. If you look away, you won't know which side you're on. His chest heaves, lungs screaming for air as the room's temperature plummets further. Frost blooms along the edges of the television screen, tendrils of ice crawling like veins toward its center. His teeth chatter violently, and yet he remains rooted in place, his body no longer his own. The tapping becomes pounding now, each impact a bone-deep vibration. Something is trying to get through. And then the lights in the apartment flare to life, without warning. The sudden brightness burns his eyes, tearing a strangled cry from his throat as he flinches back against the couch. The apartment looks normal. The couch, the walls, the door. Everything appears just as it had before this nightmare began. The television sits dark and lifeless, the frost gone. There's no static, no faces, no towering figure, just silence. His breathing is ragged, uneven, his heart hammering against his ribs like a caged animal desperate for escape. For a moment, the illusion of normalcy almost takes hold. Maybe it's over. Maybe he woke up. His hand creeps toward the armrest, testing his ability to move freely. His fingers curl against the fabric, warm, solid, real. He exhales shakily, a single sob of relief escaping his lips. But then, faintly, the whisper snakes through the air again, quieter now but unmistakable. You think this is yours? His blood turns to ice as his head snaps up. The apartment is identical, but not. At first the differences are subtle. The walls seem slightly too close, the shadows in the corners just a little too dark. Then he notices the picture frames on the wall. Every one of them holds a photograph of him, sitting on this same couch, staring blankly ahead. In each image, the figure stands behind him, sometimes in full view, other times half hidden in the shadows, its faceless head always angled toward the camera. His stomach twists violently as his gaze shifts to the door. The lock is gone. The handle too. There is no way out. He rises shakily to his feet, despite the screaming protests of his muscles. The air feels heavier here, thicker, as if each breath draws in something more than oxygen. The whisper rises again, deeper now, more insistent. You're home. He stumbles backward until his knees hit the couch, forcing him to sit once more. His eyes dart to the television. Its screen is still black, but faint ripples of movement distort its surface, like oil disturbed by a fingertip. A hand presses out from the inside of the glass. It's slow at first, testing, pale fingers splayed against the screen, as though gauging its resistance. Then a second hand joins it. Both push harder now, the surface of the television bulging outward like a membrane stretched to its limit. A hairline crack splinters across the glass. He watches, paralyzed, as those impossible fingers curl against the edges of the screen and begin pulling something through. The figure's head emerges next, smooth and featureless, its surface slick with black ichor that drips onto the floor in heavy smoking drops. The whisper fills his skull once more, louder than ever before, vibrating his teeth in their sockets. No more screens, no more glass. The figure's torso follows, impossibly long and narrow, its limbs folding unnaturally as it forces its massive form into the too small room. You are inside now, and so am I. The final crack shatters the television entirely. The sound of glass cracking still reverberates in the air as fragments of the television screen rain onto the floor, each shard landing with a delicate chime that feels grotesquely out of place in the suffocating silence. He watches, frozen in terror, as the figure pulls itself free from the ruined screen with the fluidity of smoke given form. Its body unfolds in impossible ways, limbs bending and twisting like wet branches under an unseen weight. The room shrinks around it, or maybe the thing grows as its full form emerges, towering until its faceless head nearly brushes the ceiling. Thick black ichor trails behind it, sizzling faintly as it touches the wooden floorboards, leaving behind dark scars that pulse faintly like infected wounds. The air tastes metallic now, iron-rich and wet, every breath sticking to the back of his throat as though he's inhaling blood. He wants to run, to scream, to claw his way out of this nightmare, but his legs refuse him, heavy and unresponsive, as though filled with wet cement. The figure's head tilts in a single, unnatural motion, a parody of curiosity. "You're seeing clearly now," the voice murmurs, not from its non-existent mouth, but from everywhere at once. "This isn't your home anymore." The couch creaks violently beneath him, the cushions shifting as though unseen weight has pressed in on either side. Something cold brushes against his cheek. It's so subtle at first he thinks he's imagining it, but then the pressure increases, a light, deliberate stroke like a fingertip tracing the curve of his face. His skin crawls violently at the contact, a wave of nausea churning his stomach as he forces himself not to flinch. The whisper comes again, a hiss so low it seems to bypass his ears entirely and speak directly into his veins. "You fit perfectly here. I've waited long enough." The words coil tight around his mind, like ivy constricting a crumbling wall. His reflection, no longer confined to the broken screen, lingers in his periphery. It sits across from him now, identical in every way, except for the eyes, two deep wells of blackness that seem to drink in the faint light of the room. Its lips curl upward into a smile too wide for a human face, the gesture stretching the skin unnaturally tight until faint cracks form at the edges. His stomach lurches violently as he realizes it's not a smile of welcome, it's hunger. He chokes back a sob as his hands twitch involuntarily in his lap. The figure notices, and its towering form leans closer, the scent of damp earth and rot flooding his nostrils until tears sting his eyes. Don't resist. Resistance makes it slower. The walls begin to hum. At first it's barely audible, a faint vibration like the low thrum of a distant engine, but it grows steadily, resonating through the floorboards and into his bones. He can feel it in his teeth now, a relentless buzzing that threatens to shatter his skull from the inside out. The light bulb overhead flickers violently, casting long, distorted shadows that twist and writhe like living things. The pictures on the walls, those endless photographs of him sitting blankly on the couch, begin to warp. Faces appear in the backgrounds of each one, faint at first but growing clearer with every flicker of light. Hundreds of shadowy figures stand behind him in each frame, their featureless heads all turned in unison toward the camera. His chest tightens as the realization claws at his mind. They aren't standing still, they're closer in each frame, inching forward in impossible silence like predators preparing for the kill. The whisper escalates into a hiss now, no longer calm but insistent, sharp. "It's time. You've been watching long enough. Now be watched." The words overlap, thousands of voices speaking in perfect synchrony from every surface of the apartment. The couch beneath him splits open. It's not violent, not at first. A faint tearing sound fills the air as the cushions begin to gape, seams unraveling of their own accord. But beneath the fabric is no foam or wood frame, only a yawning void of inky blackness, its edges rimmed with faint, pulsating veins of red light. The smell intensifies, a stench so foul his stomach heaves violently as bile rises in his throat. His hands shoot out instinctively to push himself away, but the cushions beneath his fingers ripple like water, offering no solid surface. His reflection across the room tilts its head in mimicry of the figure's earlier gesture, its wide grin splitting even further until its jaw unhinges completely, revealing rows of jagged, glistening teeth
that stretch impossibly deep into its skull. "You're ready," the whisper says, louder now, almost joyous. The unseen hands press hard on his shoulders, and before he can scream, he feels himself being pulled downward into the gaping hole, the couch's innards folding around him like wet fabric. His legs thrash uselessly as the darkness swallows his waist, then his chest. You asked for this every night, every knock, every stare. Only his face remains above the surface now. He gasps raggedly for air, his fingers clawing desperately at the cushions, but they slide uselessly through the slick, shifting darkness. The whispers are deafening now, so many overlapping that they form a single overwhelming roar. Faces swim just beneath the black surface, their hollow eyes and stretched mouths pressed against the thin veil separating him from whatever waits below. He sees himself among them, his hollow reflection floating closer, its empty sockets fixed on him as its jagged grin splits wider, wider, until it threatens to tear the face in half. "You belong here now," the chorus chants, their words twisting into a sound so deep it rattles his bones. "You belong here now." The figure's long, cold fingers trace his scalp gently, almost tenderly, as his chin dips below the surface. The last thing he sees before the void closes over him is the figure standing tall, faceless head tilted in quiet satisfaction, and then the lights go out. The apartment is silent once more, empty except for the faint hum of the television as it flickers back to life.
The screen shows the couch. He's sitting there, but his eyes are black. The sound behind him is impossibly loud, a sharp, deliberate knock that echoes through the room like a gavel striking at the end of a trial. It's not hesitant, it's not testing, it's a claim, a sound full of confidence, certain of the response it demands. His breath catches in his throat as his body stiffens, every muscle pulled taut like wires on the verge of snapping. He wants to turn around, to confirm what his mind already knows, but his instincts scream against it. Something ancient, buried deep in his brain, tells him that looking will only make it real. The whisper slides in again, smooth as oil, coiling tight around his thoughts. It's closer now. You can feel it. His legs tremble violently, knees threatening to give way under the weight of terror pinning him in place. The phone on the floor vibrates once more, its screen lighting up with the same message in bold, unyielding letters. "Let me in." He forces his eyes to stay fixed on the television screen. The figure is no longer there, but the static remains, flickering erratically, as though something is pressing against the other side, warping the signal with its mere proximity. The whisper grows louder, no longer calm but insistent, cracking at the edges. Say it, now." The knock comes again. This time it's softer, but somehow far more horrifying in its restraint. 3 measured taps, each one perfectly spaced, perfectly timed, as though the thing behind him knows exactly how long it will take for the sound to carve its way into his sanity. His hands grip the edge of the mattress tightly, fingernails digging into the fabric hard enough to split the skin beneath them. Warm blood pools beneath his fingertips, but he doesn't notice. His entire world has collapsed to a single point, the unbearable knowledge that something is standing only inches away. The whisper snakes down into his chest, curling around his lungs and forcing his breath into shallow, stuttering gasps. It's patient, but not forever. He swallows hard, his mouth dry and sticky, tongue heavy, as though dipped in ash. The phone vibrates again. Another message joins the first. "Don't make it wait." His vision blurs, dark spots dancing across his sight, as the pressure in the room intensifies, the air thick and suffocating like breathing through wet cloth. He squeezes his eyes shut, praying it will all disappear if he refuses to see. But deep down, he knows better. The whisper turns mocking now. You always watch, always listen. Did you think there'd be no price? The words twist and overlap, layering into a chorus of voices, male, female, young, old, speaking in perfect unison. Everything takes something, even attention. His chest constricts violently as the whisper drills deeper into his thoughts, unraveling memories and emotions like brittle paper set alight. Birthdays, laughter, quiet nights, all of it burned away in seconds, replaced by the hollow echo of those words. Let me in. The knock comes again, louder now, resonating directly against his spine, like it's moved inside the walls themselves. His teeth chatter violently as tears spill down his cheeks, blurring his vision until the faint glow of the television becomes a shapeless smear of light. His legs twitch, uselessly trying to run even as they refuse to carry him. The whisper sharpens to a hiss. Open your mouth. Say it. His lips tremble violently, a faint breath escaping as though the words are being dragged up from somewhere deep and unlit within him. I. The syllable hangs in the air like a noose, heavy and inevitable. The room grows colder. Frost crawls up the walls in delicate, intricate patterns, spider webs of ice spreading across the ceiling until the entire room seems trapped beneath a sheet of winter. His breath fogs in front of him, each exhale growing weaker, slower, as though his body is beginning to forget how to function. A faint sound begins to rise beneath the static hum of the television. Not the knock this time, but a low, guttural breathing. It's wet and uneven, punctuated by occasional clicks like teeth snapping together in the dark. His stomach lurches violently as the sound draws closer, until it feels like it's only inches from his ear. I'm waiting, the whisper growls, the warmth of it almost tangible against his skin despite the freezing air. He jerks violently forward, fighting against the invisible pressure pinning him in place. His hands claw at the mattress, nails tearing fabric and skin alike as he struggles for any semblance of control. But the presence doesn't falter. It's here. It's real. It's inevitable. And then the knock comes again, but not from behind him this time. From the television, he forces his eyes open in a surge of panic, only to see the screen alive once more, not with static, but with the image of his own room, himself sitting on the edge of the bed. His reflection's head hangs low, black ichor dripping from its hairline to stain the floor in slow, fat droplets. Slowly, it raises its head, revealing those familiar hollow eyes. Its lips stretch into an inhuman grin as a single word flashes across the screen in bold, jagged letters. Closer. The reflection stands abruptly, its movements sharp and stuttering like a corrupted video file. It begins to walk toward the camera, each step sending faint tremors through his real floorboards. His own body trembles violently as he watches it approach, his breath coming faster now, panic clawing at his throat like a living thing. The whisper deepens. Say it, and we'll be together. Say it, and it all stops. His lips part again, the words forming against his will. He chokes on the sound, shaking his head violently. No, he won't let it happen. But the figure, his own reflection on the screen, is almost at the lens now, its grin splitting wider, exposing rows of jagged, glistening teeth. Let me in, it mouths silently. His phone buzzes violently in his lap, the screen flashing over and over with the same message. Let me in, let me in, let me in. The knocking resumes. This time it comes from inside his own chest. The sound from within his chest grows louder with each heartbeat, each thud echoing in his ribcage like something knocking from the inside, testing the frail barrier of bone that holds it back. His breathing is shallow and ragged, chest rising in uneven jerks, as though every breath is a desperate attempt to reclaim control over his own body. But the knocking isn't just in his chest anymore. It resonates in his skull, a deep, resonant pounding that threatens to crack his teeth from the sheer force of it. His reflection on the television stands inches from the screen now, its hollow black eyes staring directly into his own. Its grin has stretched so far that the edges of its mouth have split, dark ichor dripping freely down its chin to pool on the floor. Behind it, faint shapes begin to appear in the static, a multitude of faceless figures pressing close to the screen, their clawed hands scratching faintly at the inside of the glass. The sound is maddening, a chorus of screeches and whispers layered over one another, like thousands of insects crawling just behind his eardrums. "Let me in," they chant in perfect unison, their voices cold and hollow. He clamps his hands over his ears, but it's useless. The sound isn't coming from outside. It's inside him now, vibrating through his bones like a tuning fork struck too hard. His phone vibrates violently on the floor, the message flashing so fast, now it's unreadable, a blur of black letters against white light. His vision swims, spots dancing across his eyes as his body teeters on the brink of collapse. The reflection on screen raises one pale, trembling hand and presses it against the glass. The television emits a soft groan, the screen bulging outward slightly as though the barrier between them is softening, thinning. The figures in the static claw more violently now, their hands leaving faint gouges that warp the image into something grotesque. His chest tightens painfully as the knocking within grows faster, matching the tempo of his wildly pounding heart. The whisper inside him rises to a scream, not words anymore, just raw sound, deep and guttural and endless. His jaw clenches as his lips part involuntarily, air rushing past his teeth in a faint, whispered syllable. The pressure in his skull triples, and for a moment he's certain it's going to burst like an overripe fruit. He squeezes his eyes shut, tears streaming freely now, but even in darkness he sees them, the figures, countless and hungry, reaching for him through the blackness. Then he feels it, a hand, cold, clammy fingers wrapping gently around his wrist. His eyes fly open in horror to see the reflection's hand protruding from the television now, impossibly long and thin, its skin a waxy pallor that seems to drink in the faint light of the room. The fingers tighten around his arm with surprising strength, sending a jolt of cold straight through to his bones. He tries to jerk free, but the grip doesn't falter. It's not just holding him, it's anchoring him. The whisper, now a guttural chorus, presses harder into his mind. No more waiting, no more walls. It's time. The reflection's grin widens again, cracking the skin of its cheeks open like splitting fruit. "You let me in." His pulse skyrockets as his other arm lashes out wildly, striking nothing but air. His phone buzzes violently on the floor, its screen glowing with one final message: together. The knocking in his chest becomes a constant pounding drumbeat that sends waves of nausea through his gut. He can feel it now, not just knocking but crawling, as though countless fingers are pressing outward against his skin from within. The television screen shatters, glass sprays across the room like a burst of ice, but there's no sound, just silence so absolute it makes his ears ring. The reflection's hand tightens and pulls, hard. His body slides forward involuntarily, his heels scraping across the wooden floor. His scream catches in his throat, no sound emerging as his legs buckle beneath him. The world around him warps at the edges, the walls breathing faintly as though the apartment itself is alive and watching. He claws at the bed frame with his free hand, nails tearing away as they catch on the wood. But the reflection doesn't falter. Its hollow black eyes burn into his, pulling him closer to the void behind the screen. The whisper grows softer now, almost tender. "You'll be so much more. Let us make you whole." He shakes his head violently, tears streaking down his cheeks in hot rivers. "No, no, no, no." But his voice is frail, weak, lost beneath the deafening sound of his own heartbeat pounding like a war drum. The crawling sensation intensifies. It's in his throat now, something slithering upward like a hand reaching for the surface. He gags violently, falling to his knees as bile rises and spills from his mouth. But it's not bile, it's black, slick and writhing, moving of its own accord as it pools on the floor beneath him. The reflection leans closer, its jagged teeth gleaming faintly in the flickering light. "Let it out," the chorus urges. "You don't need to hold it anymore. Let it wear you." His body convulses violently as more of the black ichor forces its way from his mouth, nose and ears, thick tendrils coiling on the floor like newborn serpents. His vision begins to darken at the edges, every sound growing muffled as though he's slipping underwater. The reflection's hand tugs harder, and his upper body is now halfway into the screen's void, cold air rushing past his face like a predator's breath. His final desperate scream tears free from his raw throat, and then everything stops. Silence descends once more. The reflection vanishes. The television screen shattered seconds ago is whole again, blank and dark. The knocking in his chest ceases abruptly, leaving behind a hollow, aching emptiness. He collapses onto the floor in a heap, his body trembling violently as weak sobs rack his chest. He's alive, he's still here, but the faint sound of claws dragging across glass makes his blood run cold. Slowly, his eyes lift to the screen. It shows his room again, but he's no longer in it. The screen remains dark for only a breath before it flickers back to life, faint static dancing across its surface like distant lightning in a storm. The image sharpens slowly, too slowly, until clarity slams into him like a blow to the chest. The television now shows a hallway, not his, but someone else's. Faded wallpaper curls at the corners, and a single naked bulb swings overhead, casting jittering shadows that crawl along the walls like insects. At the far end of the hall, a door stands slightly ajar. Through the gap, faint movement stirs, and for a moment he almost convinces himself it's the wind. Then the door creaks wider, and he sees it. A hand, pale and impossibly long, slithers around the edge of the frame, fingers tapping softly against the wood. Each sound is deliberate, perfectly timed, like the ticking of a malignant clock. He chokes back a sob as realization strikes with suffocating weight. This isn't his home. This isn't even his screen anymore. The feed has moved on. Somewhere else. Another apartment. Another soul. Someone is staring at their television right now, their own heart hammering as they watch the same hand curling hungrily around their doorframe. The whisper, softer now but no less cruel, slips through the dark like silk. "You were never alone. You never will be." The feed flickers again. Now it shows another room, brightly lit, sterile, a hospital by the looks of it. A woman lies motionless in a bed, her face slack with sleep. The monitor beside her pulses with steady beeps, the only sound in the heavy silence. Then it happens. The lights flicker once, twice, before plunging the room into darkness. The faint glow of the television screen picks out a shape standing in the corner. At first, it's little more than a smudge in the dark, but as the image sharpens, so too does the figure, a towering silhouette, faceless, its head cocked to one side in that horrible gesture of mimicry. Slowly, it steps forward, one foot, then the next, each movement impossibly slow, deliberate, as though savoring the inevitability of what comes next. He wants to look away, to tear his gaze from the screen, but he's rooted in place, unable to move, unable to breathe. The whisper grows louder, now a chorus of voices overlapping and echoing from every surface of his mind. We are in the walls, we are in the wires, we are already here. And then, for the first time, the woman stirs. Her eyes flutter open, confusion flashing across her face as she blinks into the darkness. She turns her head toward the sound, soft tapping now, growing louder as the figure's long fingers scrape gently against the linoleum floor. Her lips part in a silent question, her body tensing as though sensing the presence, even before her eyes fully adjust. Then the figure halts at the foot of her bed. It stands there for a long, breathless moment, its faceless void seeming to pulse faintly, as if breathing her in. Slowly, it raises one long arm, its hand unfurling to reveal fingers tipped with jagged, blackened nails. The chorus whispers in unison. "Let us in." On screen, her mouth moves, not in a scream, not in a cry for help, but in a faint, breathy whisper. He can't hear it, but he knows the words. He feels them vibrate through his chest, like a second heartbeat. "I let you in." The screen goes black. He collapses back against the floor, trembling violently as cold sweat drips down his spine. His breath comes in shallow, rattling gasps, every muscle in his body screaming in pain from the tension coiled so tight, it's nearly paralyzing him. The room feels different now, bigger somehow, though the walls haven't moved. Or maybe it's him that's smaller, weaker. He forces his head up, every motion a monumental effort, to stare at the blank screen. The faintest ripple moves across its surface, as though something large is pressing gently from the other side. A single knock echoes faintly, not from his door, not from the walls, but from inside the television itself. His blood runs cold as a new line of text bleeds onto the screen, jagged letters carving themselves into the static. "Your turn." His chest tightens violently as the whisper swells again, louder than ever before, filling every crevice of his mind. They're all watching now. Let them see you. A faint tapping starts behind him. His neck stiffens, the hairs along his scalp standing on end as the sound grows clearer. Knock, knock, knock. Each tap is gentle, polite even, but carries with it a weight that makes the air feel thicker with every repetition. His phone buzzes weakly in his pocket, and with shaking hands, he pulls it free. A new message waits on the screen. No name, no number, just a single phrase. "Are you ready?" His fingers tremble violently as he types back, though he doesn't remember making the decision to reply. No. The word hangs there for a moment, bright against the dark, before a second message arrives. That's not an answer. His mouth dries, lips cracking as he struggles to form any sound at all. The whisper leans closer now, its words brushing the inside of his skull like a caress. "Say it. Let us wear your skin. Let us use your eyes." The knocking grows louder. It's no longer behind him. It's within the walls, the floorboards, the ceiling. A sound like hundreds of hands testing every surface for weakness, finding the cracks, widening them. He watches helplessly as his reflection blooms faintly,
in the black screen once more. It smiles, not at him, but for him, as though the decision has already been made. Its mouth opens impossibly wide, and from the void within the chorus pours out again, now deafening. "Let us in." He claps his hands over his ears, screaming silently, but it's useless. The voices aren't coming from outside. They're part of him now. His body jerks violently, his vision fracturing as the edges of his world blur and ripple like disturbed water. Then everything stops. The silence is sudden, suffocating, absolute. His arms fall limp at his sides as he sags forward, his chest heaving in quiet, shuddering sobs. On the screen, the reflection's grin softens. The text shifts again, letters smearing across the static in slick black strokes. It's done. His heart stumbles in his chest as a final knock echoes, not from within, not from outside, but from his own throat. Slowly, the reflection raises its hand, fingers curling in a gesture that can only be described as a wave, and in perfect unison, his own hand rises to match it.
It begins with a flicker, just a faint, almost imperceptible ripple across a television screen in a dimly lit living room. The family doesn't notice at first. The father scrolls idly on his phone. The mother folds laundry with mechanical precision, and their teenage son lounges on the couch, earbuds firmly lodged in place as he watches something else on his smaller screen. The TV plays softly in the background, a late-night talk show host laughing at his own jokes. But beneath the canned laughter, there's something else. A faint hiss, static, too subtle to catch, unless you're listening for it. Then it happens. A shadow darts across the screen. Gone too fast to register. The host freezes mid-laugh, his grin stretched unnaturally wide before the image corrects itself. None of them notice. Not yet. But upstairs their youngest child stirs in her bed. She doesn't have a television in her room, but her nightlight flickers faintly as a whisper curls through the air like smoke. Knock, knock, knock. Her small fists clutch the blanket tightly as she pulls it over her head, too afraid to call out. The sound grows louder, no longer faint, but insistent. Knock, knock. The TV downstairs cuts to static, but only for a heartbeat before an image bleeds through. An unfamiliar hallway lined with doors stretching endlessly into the distance. At the end of the hall, a figure waits, its head cocked unnaturally as it begins to step forward. The father notices first. His phone buzzes violently in his hands as every light in the room blinks out in perfect unison. The glow of the television now becomes the only illumination, throwing long, jagged shadows across the walls. He glances at the screen and freezes. The hallway is gone, replaced by an image far more intimate. Their front door. The camera angle is impossible, perched high in the corner, as though something unseen is watching from within their home. His breath catches in his throat as he watches the door handle twitch faintly. "Honey," he calls out, voice cracking as the air in the room seems to thicken. The mother looks up from her folding, confusion furrowing her brow as she follows his gaze. The handle on screen jerks more violently now, rattling with a force that makes her stomach drop. Then comes the sound. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, not from the screen, but from the actual door. The teenager pulls his earbuds free, eyes darting nervously between his parents. "Was that here?" he whispers, his voice barely audible over the deafening silence that follows. The knocking comes again, louder this time, shaking the door in its frame. The father rises shakily to his feet, every instinct screaming at him not to move, not to acknowledge it. But his phone buzzes in his hand, a single message lighting up the screen. Let us in. Upstairs, the little girl begins to cry. Her sobs are muffled by the blanket, but they're enough to draw her mother's attention. She takes a step toward the stairs, but the sound of glass cracking stops her cold. The television screen bulges outward slightly, a faint wet sound accompanying the distortion. A long, pale hand presses against the inside of the glass, fingers splayed as though testing the strength of the barrier. The family stares in horror as the hand withdraws slowly, leaving behind dark streaks that ooze down the screen's surface like thick tar. The whisper begins then, not from the television, but from all around them. You see now, you hear now, you belong now. The words overlap endlessly, hundreds of voices speaking in unison. The father backs away until his calves hit the couch, his legs threatening to give out beneath him. The mother clutches her husband's arm, her nails digging deep as her breath comes in shallow gasps. The teenager trembles violently, his phone slipping from his hands to clatter against the floor. The screen shatters violently, without warning, sending shards of glass raining across the room. And from the broken void, a figure steps through. It's taller than any human, its limbs impossibly long and thin, each movement accompanied by faint cracking sounds as its joints twist and bend at unnatural angles. Its faceless head tilts once, then again, as though listening to something only it can hear. Thick black ichor drips from its body, in slow, heavy drops, each one sizzling faintly as it hits the floor. The air smells wrong now, sweet and rotten, like fruit left too long in the sun. The family huddles together, paralyzed by primal terror as the figure takes another step forward, its featureless face turning toward each of them in turn. The whisper grows louder, pressing against their skulls with suffocating weight. Say it. Their youngest daughter's cries rise in pitch, shrill and desperate. The figure pauses as though savoring the sound before it takes another deliberate step. The teenager's mouth moves without his permission, lips forming silent words as tears stream down his face. I let you in. The whisper sharpens to a hiss, triumphant and hungry. Good. Upstairs, her bedroom door creaks open on its own. The little girl watches in paralyzed terror as shadows slide across the floor, pooling beneath her bed. Long, spindly fingers curl around the frame, tapping faintly against the wood in a mockery of politeness. Knock, knock. Her tiny voice cracks as she whispers into the dark. Go away. But the whisper comes again, soft and coaxing. Let us in. Tears roll down her cheeks as she shakes her head violently under the covers. No, the shadows deepen, thickening until the faint glow of her nightlight is swallowed whole. Something begins to rise from beneath the bed, its movements impossibly slow, deliberate. The room grows cold, her breath fogging in front of her face as the chorus builds. Say it. Downstairs, her brother is sobbing openly now, his voice a hollow echo as he repeats the words again and again. I let you in. I let you in. I let you. The figure's body shudders violently, and its grin widens across its faceless void. The lights explode back to life. Every bulb in the house flares blindingly bright before popping in rapid succession, plunging the family into perfect darkness. Only the faint glow of the shattered television remains, casting long, grotesque shadows that seem to writhe and twist like living things. The figure bends low, its head inches from the father's own, and though it has no mouth, the words slither through the air as though whispered directly into his mind. We are in. We are in. The sound is deafening now, an endless chorus of voices echoing from every surface. The walls vibrate faintly, as though something massive is pressing against them from all sides.
searching for cracks, for weaknesses. Upstairs, the little girl's screams are abruptly cut short. Silence crashes down again, thick and final. The family is no longer alone.
Across the city, televisions hum faintly in the dead of night. Screens flicker in thousands of darkened rooms, each one alive with faint static and brief, impossible images. A man slumped on his couch wakes to the sound of his own doorbell ringing, but it isn't his doorbell anymore. The chime is slower, warped, its tone sinking lower and lower until it resembles a knuckle rapping against wood. His television glows softly in the corner of the room, though he's certain he'd turned it off hours ago. The screen is black, except for faint scratches etching themselves across the surface in chaotic, looping patterns. As he stares, a faint tapping begins from within the walls, soft at first, but growing louder and more insistent. Knock, knock. He stands on shaking legs, unsure whether to check the door or the screen. His phone vibrates violently in his pocket. The notification reads, "You see it, don't you?" His throat tightens as a faint whisper curls through the room. We're already inside. The screen flickers suddenly, showing the hallway beyond his own front door. A faceless figure stands motionless beneath the porch light, impossibly tall, its head cocked at a sickening angle. His legs refuse to move. His voice won't come. The whisper thickens, louder now, pressing against his skull until it feels ready to crack. Say it. Say the words. His lips tremble. "I let you." He clamps his mouth shut, but the knocking grows violent, shaking the walls. Across town, another house succumbs. A teenage girl FaceTimes her friend in bed, trying to stifle a yawn as they discuss nothing in particular. But her friend's expression falters mid-sentence, her eyes going wide. "Is someone there with you?" the girl asks, confused. "What?" "No." But the friend shakes her head violently, her voice urgent now. "Behind you, your TV." The girl turns slowly, heart pounding. The screen across the room glows faintly, though the power light remains off. The image is warped and indistinct at first, but slowly it clears. Her own bedroom door, viewed from an impossible angle. The handle twitches slightly. "No," she whispers, clutching the phone tighter as tears well in her eyes. A faint whisper leaks from the television speakers, soft, coaxing, wrong. "We're closer now." Knock, knock. The sound vibrates through the floorboards, rattling loose items on her nightstand. Her friend's voice is frantic now, tinny and distorted through the phone. "Hang up. Don't look at it. Don't listen." But it's too late. Her reflection in the black screen grins back at her. Her lips move on their own. "I let you in." The whisper spreads like a contagion. Apartment buildings, hospitals, subways, anywhere with a screen or a speaker. The faint hum of static carries it forward, multiplying and mutating as it infects new ears. People wake in the night to knocking, at their doors, in their walls, beneath their beds. A man drives alone down a highway, his dashboard screen flickering as his radio cuts out. Static fills the car, and a voice rides the waves. "We're waiting." "So." The GPS reroutes itself, its robotic voice whispering a new destination, again and again. "Let us in. Let us in." His chest tightens as the headlights catch something standing in the road ahead. Too tall, too still. He slams on the brakes, tires screaming, but there's no impact. When he looks up, the figure is gone. His phone buzzes violently on the passenger seat, and he snatches it up with shaking hands. A single message glows back at him. "So, you already did." The knocking starts from the trunk. Some resist. A handful of people scatter to safe rooms, locking doors, covering televisions with blankets, yanking cords from walls. They block their ears, hum loudly to drown out the whispers. But the signal finds other ways. It speaks from unplugged radios, flashes across dead screens, vibrates through metal pipes. One man smashes his television with a hammer, panting in relief. But the whisper rises from his shattered phone screen instead. It's not the device, it's you. His blood runs cold as he realizes the static sound is coming from inside his own ears now. The knocking starts in his head, faint at first, but growing louder with every second. He falls to his knees, screaming silently, as his reflection in a cracked mirror begins to smile. Children are the easiest prey, too young to know not to answer, too curious to resist. When voices whisper their names in sing-song tones, "Let us in, let us play." A boy sits cross-legged on the living room floor, eyes wide as cartoon static dances across the television. His parents argue in the kitchen, unaware of the faint tapping in the walls around them. Knock, knock, knock. The boy giggles softly, his small hands tapping back in perfect rhythm. The cartoon voices overlap now, no longer playful but layered and hollow. Good, that's good. The tapping grows louder, faster, until his parents freeze mid-argument, eyes darting toward the sound. The boy's voice carries from the living room light and sing-song, "I let you in." The parents rush in, but it's already too late. The boy's face is blank, his grin impossibly wide as the static on the screen deepens into pitch-black void. Something moves behind it, long fingers pressing eagerly against the glass. The signal infects the air itself. In the center of the city, billboards flash images they weren't programmed for. Hallways, doors, faceless figures, standing silently beneath swinging bulbs. Radios cut out mid-song to his faintly, before voices crawl through the static. "Let us in." Phones vibrate with unreadable messages, screens bleeding faint streaks of black like corrupted ink. People pause in the streets, their eyes drawn upward to glowing windows where shadows flicker and shift behind curtains. Slowly, their lips begin to move in unison. "I let you in." A low hum spreads across the city, vibrating through every building, every floorboard. Knock, knock, knock. The sound grows louder, until it's impossible to tell where it comes from anymore. Doors, walls, screens, minds, everything resonates with it, and then silence. For a long, breathless moment, the city holds still, lights flicker, power surges, then every screen, phones, tablets, televisions flickers to life. The same message appears on all of them, jagged letters scrolling endlessly across black. "We are here." It starts with the eyes. First they glaze over faintly, a milky sheen crawling across the corneas like frost on glass. At first people think it's fatigue, or perhaps a side effect of staring too long at flickering screens. But then the blinking stops. Entire crowds freeze mid-step, mid-conversation, their movements stuttering like corrupted files as their eyes film over completely. A barista halts mid-pour, coffee spilling in slow rivulets across the counter. A businessman stops, mid-sentence on a phone call, the static of the signal now audible, even through the thin plastic of his device. Across the city, children tilt their heads in perfect unison, their mouths stretching into small, glassy smiles. They begin tapping, fingers on walls, feet on floors, a steady, syncopated rhythm that spreads like a virus. Knock, knock. Soon entire buildings echo with it, the sound resonating deep in the bones of those few who haven't yet succumbed. The uninfected stumble through streets, littered with frozen bodies, their own breaths ragged as the whisper curls in from every angle. Almost there, so close. A woman clamps her hands over her ears, screaming at the voices that slide slickly between her thoughts. But the sound doesn't fade. It's in her mind now, in her blood, in the very marrow of her bones. The transformation accelerates. Mouths open without sound at first, then slowly begin to shape the words. I let you in. The phrase loops endlessly, whispered by thousands of lips in perfect harmony. Phones vibrate violently in abandoned rooms, each one flashing unreadable messages that smear into jagged streaks of black and white. The television screens pulse like living things, their surfaces bulging and retracting in faint, breathing motions. From within, shapes press close to the glass. Long fingers, eyeless faces, bodies too tall and thin to ever belong in this world. One by one, the screens begin to crack. At first, hairline fractures spiderwebbing across the surface. Then entire panels burst outward, spilling thick black ichor onto hardwood floors and carpets alike. The fluid moves on its own, sliding against gravity, pooling beneath door frames as though seeking a way out. The uninfected barricade themselves in tiny pockets of resistance, basements, closets, anywhere without screens. But even in total darkness they can hear it. The faint tapping, the whispers, the sound of something immense breathing just beyond their fragile walls. And then the knocking begins inside them. At first it's subtle, a faint pressure behind the ribs, a fluttering in the throat. But soon it escalates into pounding so violent, their bodies convulse with each impact, as if their own hearts are trying to hammer their way free. One man claws desperately at his chest, nails raking deep furrows in his flesh, as his screams choke off into wet, gurgling gasps. A woman collapses in a stairwell, her mouth stretched wide in a silent scream, as something moves beneath her skin, rippling in long, unnatural waves. Those watching see her ribs bulge outward briefly, as though struck from the inside. Then the whisper comes, tender and mocking all at once. There's no more outside, only us. Her body jerks violently once, twice, before settling unnaturally still. Slowly her head tilts upward, and her eyes are gone, hollow pits of black ichor that weep sluggish trails down her cheeks. Her lips part, and the chorus pours forth again, soft and sweet as lullabies. I let you in. The air itself begins to hum. It's subtle, at first, a vibration in the teeth, a faint pressure behind the eyes, but soon entire buildings tremble under the weight of it, windows rattling in frames, walls groaning like living things under strain. Outside, power lines sway violently, though the air is still. Birds fall silent, their bodies twitching faintly, as if caught in some unseen pulse. Then, as one, they drop from the sky. A young man stumbles into the street, his ears bleeding as his phone slips from limp fingers. Around him, every screen blazes to life, even the ones long shattered, glowing faintly with impossible energy. His eyes widen in horror as they all show the same thing, himself standing alone in the street. Slowly, a figure steps into frame behind him, impossibly tall, its faceless head cocked at a grotesque angle. It raises one long-fingered hand and taps gently on the screen. Knock, knock, knock. He spins wildly, but the street behind him is empty. The whisper curls close to his ear now, low and intimate. We wear you now. Soon, even voices are not their own. The uninfected huddle in dark corners, whispering prayers and curses alike, but the words feel wrong on their tongues. They hear themselves speak in voices not their own, layered and fractured,
as though multiple people speak through a single throat. A mother clasps her child tightly, rocking back and forth as tears streak down her face. But when she whispers into his hair, it is not comfort that comes out. They are here already. They are inside. Her own voice doesn't sound like her anymore. It's lower, fragmented, heavy with the echo of thousands. She clamps a hand over her mouth in horror, but it's too late. The boy lifts his head, his small face slack with a glassy, hollow grin. Together they turn toward the door as faint knocking begins again, impossibly polite, unbearably patient. The city holds its breath. For a long, silent moment, no sound exists except the faint hum that permeates everything, vibrating through bone and brick alike. Then, as if on cue, every screen, every phone, tablet, television, flashes the same message across jagged, glitching letters. All doors open. A sound like 1,000 locks disengaging at once rolls through the city, a deep, resonant click that seems to echo from every surface. The infected rise in perfect synchrony, their movements fluid now, purposeful. The uninfected press themselves deeper into their hiding places, hearts hammering in futile resistance. But they can already feel it, the knocking deep within their own chests, faint but growing louder. Knock, knock, knock. The whisper is deafening now. Let us wear your skin. Let us see through your eyes. Let us in.
The world falls silent, as though it knows it's already lost. Streets once filled with movement stand still, cars idling with doors hanging open, shopping bags dropped on cracked sidewalks. Somewhere in the distance, a faint wind stirs, but it's not enough to mask the sound now consuming everything. Knock, knock, knock. It rolls like a heartbeat through concrete and steel, every surface vibrating faintly in response. The few who still resist huddle in darkness, breath caught in ragged throats, praying that the sound will pass them by. But deep down they feel it, a weight settling over their minds, thick and suffocating like heavy fog. One man holds his hands to his chest, sobbing as the knocking grows louder. Not outside, not even in the walls, but from within his ribcage. His phone lies smashed at his feet. Yet still, it glows faintly, fractured screen flashing the same 3 words in endless repetition. We are here. His sobs turn into gasps, then laughter. Not his laughter, not his voice. It's layered now, deep and hollow, as though a chorus speaks through his mouth. The sound climbs in pitch until it no longer resembles anything human. Knock, knock, knock. The world joins in as millions of voices whisper together, I let you in. In rural towns untouched by the early waves of infection, people cling to analog systems, pulling batteries from devices, smashing screens with desperate strength. But it doesn't matter. Radios that haven't been turned on in years sputter to life. Static drips from old speakers like rainwater, carrying with it the faint but unmistakable sound of knuckles rapping gently against wood. Knock, knock, knock. Do you hear us? The chorus asks sweetly. Almost teasing, a farmer drops to his knees in the dirt, clutching his head as blood trickles from his nose. He can feel it now, the weight in his skull, fingers brushing softly against the inside of his temples, as if testing the fragile barrier of bone. His lips tremble, words slipping out against his will. No, but the whisper deepens, honeyed and cruel. Yes, you opened the door. His body convulses once before falling still. When he rises again, his eyes are gone, replaced by slick voids that reflect nothing at all. We are here. The infection spreads beyond screens. In hospitals, patients convulse violently as medical monitors flicker with impossible static. In prisons, entire blocks go silent as inmates drop to their knees in unison, their hollow voices rising together. Let us in. In churches, priests scream prayers into the void as stained glass windows vibrate faintly with the knock 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 of unseen fists. But even the prayers fracture, words twisting into something alien as they fall from shaking lips. Deliver us into you. Choirs of infected children sway in pews, their voices high and sweet as they chant in perfect harmony. We wear them now. We are their mouths. We are their eyes. In the center of the city, giant billboards glow with a single stark image. A door. The knob turns slowly, endlessly, as shadows slither beneath its frame like living things. Knock. Knock. The sound builds until it's no longer sound at all, but a vibration in the marrow of every living thing. The few who remain unclaimed press their hands to their ears. But there's no silence anymore. There's no place left untouched. Then the first door opens. It's not dramatic, not a crash, not a burst of light, just the soft click of a latch giving way. In a suburban home, a family of 5 sits paralyzed as their front door swings inward on creaking hinges. The hallway beyond is impossibly dark, though faint shapes twitch and writhe within it. One by one, the family members begin to smile, tears streaking down their frozen faces as their lips move in unison. I let you in. From the darkness, a long-fingered hand emerges, pale and slick with ichor. It rests gently on the threshold, tapping once, twice, 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. Then the figure follows, impossibly tall, joints cracking faintly as it stoops beneath the frame. Its faceless void tilts toward each family member in turn before it whispers, "We are home." Across the world, millions of doors begin to click open, and still they knock. In office buildings and schools, in skyscrapers and shanty towns, the sound repeats endlessly. Knock, knock, knock. Some try to run but find themselves moving in circles, hallways folding in on themselves like endless loops. Every corridor leads back to the same door, and every door opens to the same darkness. Behind them, faint footsteps follow at a deliberate pace. Tap, 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 and when they finally turn, there it stands, featureless, endless, smiling without a mouth. There's no leaving, the whisper assures them. You were never outside. The walls bulge faintly as more shapes press against them, slick fingers dragging down wallpaper in wet, audible streaks. Screens no longer matter. Devices no longer matter. The infection is no longer transmitted. It is lived. The knocking moves inward. For those still hiding, it begins in their dreams. A faint tapping just beyond perception, pulling them deeper into endless corridors lined with doors. Each door bears their name etched in crooked letters that seem to writhe when stared at too long. As they walk, the whispers grow louder, rising to an almost joyful chorus. Let us wear you, let us see. One by one they reach for the knobs, compelled by something far larger than fear. And outside their dreams, their bodies begin to move too, hands reaching for door handles, for light switches, for screens that should be dark. But there is no more dark. There is only the knock, knock, knock of the new heartbeat they now share. In the end, silence falls again. The world holds its breath as a final message appears across every remaining screen, scrawled in jagged letters that drip and bleed into the static. All doors open, all hosts prepared. Then the screens fade, leaving only their faint reflections grinning back, eyes hollow and endless. Somewhere, impossibly close, a voice as large as the sky,
and as small as a whisper curls through the air. We are here, and we are hungry. Then faintly, impossibly loud in the stillness, knock, knock, knock.
The world no longer breathes. Cities once alive with noise and chaos have fallen into an impossible stillness, a silence so deep it feels physical, thick enough to choke on. Streets lie empty, save for the occasional figure standing perfectly still, heads cocked at unnatural angles, hands slack at their sides. Their eyes are voids now, black wells that drink in every trace of light, reflecting nothing. They do not move, they do not speak. But beneath the silence, a sound persists, low, steady, vibrating through asphalt, stone, and flesh alike. Knock, knock. It is not heard so much as felt, a resonance deep within the chest, like a second heartbeat, pulsing in perfect time. The few who remain untouched stumble through this new world, covering their ears, eyes squeezed shut as they mutter frantic prayers. But even in the depths of their minds, the sound persists. Knock, knock. One woman curls in a corner of a locked pantry, breath ragged as she rocks back and forth. She's covered every screen, smashed every speaker, but the whisper still comes. All doors are open now. Why are you still hiding? Her breath hitches as a faint tapping begins, not from the walls, not from the door, but from inside her skull. In the open streets, the infected begin to move. It's slow at first, small, jerky motions like marionettes testing their strings. Heads tilt upright in unison, fingers flex, joints cracking loudly in the oppressive silence. Then they begin walking, not hurried, not chaotic, but with deliberate, synchronized strides. Thousands of feet echo against the pavement, their steps perfectly aligned as they flood intersections and spill into alleys. Above them, televisions long dead blink back to life. Their cracked, bleeding screens display a single image, a door opening endlessly on an endless loop. Knock, knock. The sound grows louder as it resonates through glass and steel. In the tallest skyscrapers, windows ripple like water, shapes pressing against them from the other side. Blackened hands scrape faintly against the inside of the glass, leaving streaks of ichor as they drag downward. Somewhere below, a lone survivor watches in horror from beneath a wrecked car, tears streaming silently down his cheeks. He dares not breathe. The infected pass within inches of him, their hollow gazes fixed forward. But one stops. Slowly, its head turns, and though it has no face, he feels it see him. The knocking swells. It's no longer contained to the ground. The air vibrates faintly now, carrying the rhythm like an infection in the wind. Birds lie dead in the streets. Dogs howl and snap at nothing before collapsing, their bodies shuddering in violent spasms. Electrical wires hum with a faint resonance that grows louder by the hour. In homes, survivors feel it in their teeth, their bones, even in the soft tissues of their organs. A man holds his head in his hands, sobbing as he feels the pressure building in his chest. His heartbeat no longer feels like his own. It syncs perfectly with the knock, 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 each pulse accompanied by a faint voice whispering from within his ribcage. You don't need to run anymore. You were always part of us. He claws at his chest desperately, tearing bloody gouges into his skin as he screams. But even his screams come out wrong, layered, fractured, like 1,000 voices overlapping in perfect harmony. I let you, he doesn't finish. His mouth splits into an impossible grin as his body convulses and stills. Slowly, he rises,
his hollow eyes locking onto the horizon. The figures grow taller. Each day they stretch impossibly further, their limbs elongating until they tower above street lamps and telephone poles. Their spines crack and twist in audible waves as they bend to slip through doorways, their clawed hands dragging deep furrows in the walls. Faceless heads tilt this way and that, like predators scenting unseen prey. In the suburbs, one figure lingers outside a house, tapping softly against the glass of a second-story window. Inside, a family huddles in the bathroom, clutching each other as tears streak their faces. The father whispers fiercely, "Don't look at it, don't listen," but the knocking grows louder, reverberating through the tiles beneath their feet. The youngest child begins to hum, soft and tuneless, as her eyes glaze over. Her mother shakes her violently, pleading in hoarse whispers, "Stay with me, baby, stay with me." But it's too late. The little girl smiles faintly, her lips moving in time with the chorus that grows louder by the second. "I let you in." The knocking ceases abruptly. Then the door handle begins to turn. Above the city, the sky fractures. It starts as a faint seam of darkness threading across the clouds. Then it widens. Black ichor drips from the tier, falling in slow, deliberate droplets that sizzle where they strike. The figures raise their heads in unison, their arms spreading wide as if welcoming something home. From the tier, more shapes begin to emerge, faceless, towering, their bodies impossibly thin and long. They descend slowly, graceful as falling leaves, and where they land, the ground shudders. Survivors watch from their hiding places as streets fill with these newcomers, their forms folding and shifting unnaturally like reflections in broken glass. Their whisper joins the chorus already choking the air. "You opened the door, now we will fill the house." In basements, closets, locked cars, the few remaining uninfected clutch weapons uselessly, trembling as the walls themselves begin to breathe. Then the doors vanish. Across the world, every doorway dissolves into endless blackness, each threshold now a gaping maw lined with writhing shadows. Survivors who dare peek outside find themselves staring into corridors that shouldn't exist, twisting halls that stretch infinitely, lined with countless doors. Some bear names they recognize, friends, family, lovers long dead. Others are blank, waiting. The knocking grows deafening. Knock, knock, knock. It shakes the very fabric of the world, windows fracturing, concrete splitting. A woman presses her hands to her ears, sobbing violently. But the whisper cuts through even her cries, tender and cold. There is no outside anymore. Only us, only in. And still the figures keep coming.
The knocking doesn't stop. It's no longer rhythmic, it's constant. It vibrates through concrete, water, and even air, a ceaseless pulse that resonates in every cell of every living thing. Survivors hold their heads, in shaking hands, teeth chattering as their skulls thrum in time with the sound. "It's in me," one whispers to herself, rocking in a fetal position in a windowless bathroom. "It's in me, it's in my blood." But the whisper that answers is not hers. "Yes, we wear your veins now. We walk your bones." She clamps her hands over her mouth to hold back a scream, but her lips part anyway, her voice no longer her own. "I let you in." Across the house, every door dissolves into blackness, each frame stretching like a mouth yawning wide. A figure stoops beneath one, its body dripping ichor that hisses faintly as it pools on the tiles. Its long fingers curl around the edges of the doorway as it pulls itself forward, joint by joint. "We were patient," it whispers. "Now we're home." In the cities, The streets are no longer streets. They've become corridors, endless hallways of twisting shadows, lined with doors that open and close without sound. Some open to familiar rooms, others to vistas of impossible landscapes, oceans of writhing hands, forests of eyeless figures swaying like trees, skies cracked and bleeding black ichor that drips upward instead of down. Those few still hiding peer through slats in barricades, eyes wide with silent terror, as the world they knew folds inward. A man clutches his son in a dimly lit basement, murmuring frantically, "Don't look, don't listen, don't answer." But the boy's small hand is already reaching for the knob of a door that shouldn't exist. It's wood-old and splintered, its surface covered in carvings that pulse faintly, like veins. "It's calling me Daddy," the boy whispers, voice trembling. "Knock, knock." I can't not answer. The father's scream drowns in the chorus that fills the air, impossibly vast and intimate all at once. "We're so glad you're awake." The figures evolve. Where once they were towering, skeletal forms with faceless voids, they now stretch and contort into shapes that almost, but not quite, resemble the humans they've consumed. Some wear parodies of faces, lopsided grins etched into featureless heads, eyes too large and too still. Others mimic movements imperfectly, stiff, puppet-like gestures that twitch at odd intervals. They knock as they move, their long fingers drumming softly against walls, glass, and even each other. Knock, knock, knock. Survivors watch from shadows, their breaths shallow as they pray to gods who no longer answer. One woman dares a whisper to the man crouched beside her. "Do you think they know we're here?" But it's not his voice that answers. "We always knew. You're part of the house now." Her scream is swallowed whole as his body convulses violently, joints snapping as his spine arches back in an unnatural angle. His face splits into a hollow grin as he rises, now one of them. The knocking spreads inward. It's not just felt in the bones anymore. It's in thoughts, in dreams, in memories. Survivors wake screaming from visions of endless corridors, of doors that slam open with impossible force. Each dream ends the same way, standing before their own front door, hearing the knock, knock, knock that demands an answer. Some resist, forcing themselves awake, only to find their hands reaching for doorknobs in reality, their feet moving without consent. A young woman lashes her hands to a radiator with torn sheets, sobbing as her fingers twitch against the bindings. "Don't let me open it. Please, don't let me." But the knocking grows louder, the whisper wrapping around her mind like a lover's breath. It's so much easier when you do. Slowly, inexorably, her fingers begin to flex against the sheets. Let. She clamps her mouth shut, tears streaming down her face. But the voice doesn't need her lips. It speaks through her teeth, her lungs, her blood. "You let us in." Then the walls begin to dissolve. Not collapse, dissolve. Like sugar in water, the plaster and brick melt into blackness, revealing the same infinite corridors seen in dreams. Shadows writhe endlessly across their floors, and faint voices carry from beyond the nearest doors. "Over here. We're waiting. Don't be afraid." The last survivors huddle in the few places that seem to hold. The crevices between crevices, the liminal spaces where doors don't belong. But even here, the sound seeps in. Knock, knock, knock. A child whispers to her mother, voice hollow. "Are we still inside?" The mother can't answer. She doesn't know anymore. The house has no edges now. The world is a house filled with knocking. The figures stop knocking. They don't need to anymore. The doors are open. Every threshold leads somewhere else, and nowhere at all.
Survivors stumble endlessly, their feet dragging across floors that shift and ripple beneath them. Some call out for help, for rescue, for release, but their own voices echo back, distorted, wrong, speaking words they never meant. We're here, we're home, we're in. A man stumbles into a room lined with mirrors. Each reflection grins back at him with hollow eyes, whispering in unison, "You've always been here." He screams, smashing the glass, but each shard only multiplies his reflection, until 1,000 hollow versions of himself grin and say, "Knock, knock."
There's no telling how long it's been since the last sunrise. Time no longer works the way it used to. Not when every street leads to the same place. Every door opens to the same impossible darkness. And every breath carries the faint echo of knock, knock, knock. The few who still cling to themselves stumble blindly, shoes scraping on floors that feel too soft, too warm, like the inside of a living thing. One man drags himself through a corridor lined with infinite doors, each one marked with a name he almost remembers. His hands tremble as he reaches for a knob, but pulls back at the last second, chest heaving. Behind the door, something shifts, tapping gently. Knock, knock. "You're so close," the voice whispers from all around him. "Just open up." He shakes his head violently, pressing his palms over his ears. But the sound is already inside him, vibrating in his bones, his teeth, the back of his skull. A single drop of ichor runs from his nose. "I'm not." His protest falters as his lips twitch against his will, shaping words that aren't his own. "I let you in." The corridors grow stranger with every step. Some stretch upward into endless voids, stairs spiraling infinitely with no railings, no landings, only doors hanging at impossible angles from walls that should lead nowhere. Others narrow so tightly, survivors have to turn sideways to squeeze through, their shoulders brushing walls that pulse faintly, like veins filled with thick, sluggish blood. The knocking never stops. It echoes from every door, every wall, every inch of the air itself. Knock, knock, knock. One woman presses forward, fingers bleeding where they've clawed at the plaster in desperate attempts to mark her path. But every mark heals behind her as soon as she moves on. "This isn't real," she whispers to herself, voice trembling. "It's a dream." But the whisper in her ear is softer now, almost tender. It's home. She stops walking, realizing with a jolt that the corridor behind her has vanished. There is only forward now, only doors, only knocking. The survivors begin to forget. Names dissolve first, slipping away like water through cupped hands. Then faces blurred, indistinct, impossible to hold in memory for more than a few seconds. A man stumbles through a doorway and finds himself back in his childhood bedroom. Posters of bands he no longer recognizes peeling on the walls. But the air smells wrong, thick and sweet, like rotting fruit. On the bed sits a figure, its back turned, humming softly. He knows he shouldn't speak, shouldn't move, but the words slip out of him anyway. "Mom." The figure stiffens, slowly, impossibly slowly. It begins to turn. The face is his own, grinning wide with black ichor pouring from hollow eyes. It speaks in perfect unison with the knocking. "I let you in." He screams, backing into the hall, only to find the door gone. Behind him, the humming grows louder. Everywhere becomes nowhere. The house is endless now. Streets lead into hallways, hallways into forests of writhing bodies, forests into rooms filled with mirrors, that only reflect hollow-eyed versions of whoever enters. Survivors wander for what feels like days, weeks, years, but hunger never comes. Sleep never comes. Only the knocking, always the knocking. Knock, knock. Some try to fight it, slamming doors, clawing at walls, but their efforts are absorbed without a sound, like throwing stones into deep water. One by one they give in. A man kneels on the floor, whispering through cracked lips, I won't let you." But his trembling hands have already found the nearest doorknob. The ichor seeps from under the frame, curling around his fingers in gentle caresses. The voice comes from within now, no longer needing walls or speakers. It's not letting us in, it's letting yourself out. The house speaks. It's no longer a whisper but a chorus, layered, endless, pressing in from every angle at once. We are here. We have always been here. You are us now. The floors pulse faintly beneath bare feet, warm and yielding, like muscle. Doors breathe in unison, their surfaces stretching with unseen lungs. The few remaining unclaimed stumble into vast chambers where ceilings arch impossibly high, supported by pillars made of bodies fused together, their faces frozen mid-scream. Above, vast eyes blink open in the darkness, uncountable and unblinking. A woman falls to her knees, hands pressed to her ears as her mouth opens in a soundless wail. The knocking rises to a deafening crescendo. Knock, knock. The voice smiles through her own throat. We're so glad you stayed. And then the walls dissolve completely. There is no more house, no more outside. Only an endless plain of black ichor rippling faintly underfoot, stretching as far as the eye can see. The sky above is filled with doors, millions, billions, each one opening and closing soundlessly, as faceless figures step through in perfect synchrony. Survivors are scattered here and there, small islands of resistance in a sea of black. But even they know resistance is an illusion. Their bodies already vibrate with the rhythm, their hearts drumming knock-knock against fragile ribs. One man collapses, staring up at the doors above. Where are we? The voice answers from his own lips, calm and final. You're home. The knocking stops. It's not silence. It's worse than silence. A void where sound should be. A crushing emptiness that feels like being watched by something too large to comprehend. Then faintly, impossibly loud in every mind at once. All doors opened. All hosts prepared. Across the endless plain, the figures turn as one, their faceless heads tilting toward the last few who still cling to the illusion of self. Slowly, patiently, they begin to walk. There is nowhere left to run. The plain stretches infinitely in all directions, a black ocean of shifting ichor that ripples beneath unseen winds. Above, the sky is alive with movement. Doors swing endlessly open and shut, each one revealing glimpses of other worlds, some vibrant and alien, others hollow and lifeless, all connected by the same impossible house. Survivors stumble blindly across the shifting surface, their legs dragging like dead weight, eyes hollow with exhaustion. Every step feels heavier than the last, as though the air itself thickens to hold them in place. One woman falls to her knees, her hands sinking wrist-deep into the liquid ground. It's warm, it's breathing. She looks up, lips trembling as she whispers, "Am I inside?" But the whisper comes from the sky now, layered voices as vast as the void, and as intimate as her own heartbeat. "You always were. You never left." Above her, the doors begin to align, forming an impossible shape that eclipses the horizon. Knock, knock. The sound is no longer a sound but a law, a command written into every atom. She presses her hands over her ears, but there's no silence left to find. The faceless figures draw closer. They move in perfect unison across the Ica, their long limbs dragging faint trails behind them. Their heads tilt as they advance, eyeless faces locked onto each trembling survivor like predators who already know how the hunt ends. Each step they take reverberates through the black plain, sending ripples that knock survivors off balance. Some try to run, but every direction leads them back to the same place, an open door floating in the middle of the void. Its surface gleams faintly, carved with names in languages no human mouth could pronounce. One man collapses before it, sobbing as he claws at the ground. "I don't want to go through," he whispers, but his body betrays him, dragging itself forward inch by inch. The whisper follows him from every angle. "You're not going through, you're going home." His fingers curl around the edge of the threshold as his mouth splits into a too-wide grin. "I let you in." The house breathes. Every surface, sky, ground, even the figures themselves rises and falls with deep, patient inhalations. Each breath carries a faint whisper, impossible to escape. "We wear you, we speak you, we remember you." A survivor stumbles, clutching his head as memories not his own flood. His mind, endless lives lived and lost, doors opened and closed, worlds devoured and remade. His voice fractures into a chorus of thousands. "Who am I?" The whisper answers tenderly. "You're part of the house now. You're one of the rooms." Above, the doors begin to bloom like flowers, their endless frames opening to release pale, writhing shapes that unfurl across the void. The plain is no longer still. It ripples with movement as the Ica rises in tendrils, wrapping lovingly around each survivor. One woman screams, but the sound is devoured before it can leave her throat. The transformation completes. Bodies are absorbed into the plain, their forms melting seamlessly into the black ocean. Faces stretch and twist across the rippling surface before vanishing entirely. Where they once stood, faint doorframes emerge, millions of them, each pulsing faintly with life. From within, soft knocking begins anew. Knock, knock, knock. Above, the shape in the sky solidifies into something too vast to comprehend, its geometry folding endlessly into itself. The whisper hums in time with its movements. "We are whole again. The house is full." The few remaining survivors claw uselessly at the ground, their mouths moving in silent protests that never reach sound. But even as they resist, their fingers twitch in the rhythm of the knock, knock, knock. And then there are no survivors. There are only rooms. Each one breathes faintly, shadows slithering behind doors that now cover every inch of the plain. The figures no longer need to walk. They have become the halls, the walls, the ceilings. Their whispers layer over each other, endlessly, until they are no longer voices but a singular thought. All doors open, all hosts prepared. Beyond the house, no worlds remain untouched. The doors hang now in alien skies, in empty space, in the depths of oceans on distant planets. Wherever there was once a threshold, it now leads here. Here to the house, here to them. The knocking slows. It's no longer frantic, no longer urgent, it's patient. Content, a soft, slow knock, knock, knock that hums like a lullaby through the infinite corridors. The house has no beginning, no end. It simply is. Behind every door, a faint whisper lingers, waiting. We are here, we are you. And when the next world opens its door, we will be ready to knock. A single door closes gently somewhere in the distance, the sound echoing like a heartbeat across the void.
And in that silence, the house smiles.
And so, the knocking never truly stops. It waits patiently behind every screen, every door, every fragile moment of silence. Perhaps you've already heard it. A faint tap, tap, tap in the dead of night. Or maybe, just maybe, it's coming from your TV, and it's live. If you felt a chill just now, don't worry, you're not alone. There are so many more haunting stories, eerie histories, and chilling mysteries waiting for you right here. Subscribe now and join us as we step through more doors you can never quite close again. The house is always open, and so is this channel.